Theater of the Imagination proudly presents Extreme Gravity, the new radio play written by J.D. Evans Jr., starring Elvis D. Tripp and his traveling troupe of strange voices, and featuring the musical stylings of Milford Whittle and his finger puppet marching band, with smooth, silly announcements by Warhol the Potato. We continue with Chapter 27, Ramunculus the Overlord of the 13th Dimension. Ramunculus, the Overlord of the 13th Dimension, was an omnipotent entity, and in great contrast to Frog Munificent, who was smaller than a jelly bean, Ramunculus could be as large as a small planet, yet could compact himself so that he too, like Frog Munificent, could be smaller than a jelly bean. There was a rogue time thread coming toward the dwelling of Ramunculus the Overlord of the 13th Dimension, and Ramunculus scurried to a conveniently located nearby safe area. Rogue time threads were not unknown to occur, of course, but they were more obvious and equally more frequent in the 13th Dimension, where Ramunculus and his dwelling inside an extended Calabi-Yah brain were located in space-time. The 13th Dimension was not so much a location as it was an existence, and as such, its existence was important to the overall structure of space-time itself. Ramunculus, the Overlord of the 13th Dimension, had a device which filtered rogue time threads, but using it in the 13th Dimension had unusual consequences for the other dimensions. So Ramunculus did not use the rogue time thread filtering device when he was in the 13th Dimension. In what historically is considered generally to be the defining event regarding the use of the rogue time thread filtering device, one of the unintended consequences caused the people of an entire planet to have pink and purple hair, which was all the more unusual because prior to Ramunculus, the Overlord of the 13th Dimension, using the rogue time thread filtering device in the 13th Dimension, none of the people of that planet had hair, let alone pink and purple hair. As the initial surprise and shock at suddenly having pink and purple hair subsided, it actually spawned an entire ecosystem of hair care, hairstyling, and general hair-focused industry, which on the good side mapped to the planet avoiding a troublesome financial crisis, although only after someone had the novel idea that hairstylists should be paid in currency rather than by happy thoughts. In fact, prior to this revelation, the entire economy of the planet was focused on using happy thoughts to pay for everything, something which had the bonus of saving the considerable expenses that traveled with printed currency and minted metal coins. Banks, bank workers, financial advisors, and other banking and money-related occupations, industries, and services. You might wonder, how can happy thoughts be used as a type of payment? And the answer is that in most places it cannot. But on this planet, the inhabitant has a unique ability to recognize and record happy thoughts, which they then use to partner among themselves. As Ramunculus, the Overlord of the 13th Dimension, sought refuge from the rogue time thread, he thought to himself about the planet where everyone now had pink and purple hair, and then pondered the wisdom of not using the rogue time thread filter here in the 13th Dimension.
Was it really such a bright idea then?
As Ramunculus, the Overlord of the 13th Dimension, was considering the logic of whatever he was pondering, the rogue time thread was coming nearer to the extended Calabi-Yah brain that Ramunculus preferred to call home in the space-time of the 13th Dimension. And as the sound grew nearer and louder, Ramunculus was glad he had designed and built safe areas in and around the extended Calabi-Yah brain. Was this the result of an omnipresent existential reality? Or was it simply something omnipotent entities do in the 13th dimension? Ramunculus, the Overlord of the 13th dimension, had a series of thoughts in this regard, but dismissed most of them and just observed,
does it really matter?
Like all the entities in the extended Galabia brain, Ramunculus was fond of questions which only had philosophical answers, few if any of which were definitive in any exclusively unambiguous way. The rogue time thread now was barreling through the 13th dimension, and as usually tended to be the case, brought along with it a group of slammer clowns who were particularly brainwashed followers of the Grand Eye of Tole, the ex-Canadian who, even more than increasing the size of the Great Ball of String, desired to extend the standard galactic week by exactly 1 day, thereby making it evenly divisible by 3, something about which the Grand Eye of Tole dreamed and thought
Finally, we're being clean.
As should be obvious now, the Grand Eye of Tole carefully selected each of the slammer clowns for their natural abilities to identify, catch, and surf time threads. And this was one of the ways the Grand Eye of Tole gathered intelligence data on the activities of every planet and its inhabitants in the galaxy. Ramunculus, the Overlord of the 13th dimension, was aware of this, but chose to ignore it based on the philosophical perspective and factual reality that, at least for a while, it was advantageous to have the Grand Eye of Tole focus solely on extending the duration of the standard galactic week by exactly 1 day, thereby making it evenly divisible by 3, something which even Ramunculus, the Overlord of the 13th dimension, thought
Certainly, what means wait. Embrace blood love, and blood love will be your master.
And thus ends the 27th chapter of Extreme Gravity, Ramunculus, the Overlord of the 13th dimension. Stay tuned for the next chapter. Chuck, Puddin', Little Guy, and Duncan. This has been brought to you by the fabulously fabulous, marvelously marvelous, wonderfully wonderful science fiction theater of the imagination.